Can you imagine waking up to find your dream job, your career, and even your reputation swept away overnight? That's precisely what happened behind the glitzy facade of GVE London, the supercar dealership once envied across Britain. While headlines focused on the millions lost and the customers left stranded, there is a far more unsettling truth rarely explored: the hidden devastation among those working on the inside. Forget the stereotype of slick salesmen and millionaire brokers. At GVE London, countless ordinary employees, sales assistants, marketing staff, junior brokers, were caught entirely off guard by the collapse. For many, the dealership wasn't just a workplace, but a launchpad for dreams, the promise of six-figure deals, Instagram stardom, or a gateway to the rarefied world of Lamborghinis and Ferraris. Some had left secure jobs, others had invested their savings to join what seemed an unstoppable success story. But as rumors started swirling and whispers of unpaid consigners grew louder, anxiety seeped through the ranks. Staff who once posted boastful TikToks now found themselves dreading every email. In private, a culture of fear took hold. Some sensed the cracks appearing, but were warned to keep quiet or get out. A few discovered financial irregularities, only to be shut out of meetings or quietly let go. Most, however, simply couldn't believe that a business with millions of followers and a constant stream of luxury cars could truly be in danger. When the end came, it was swift and brutal. One day you're handing over the keys to a McLaren, the next you're fielding angry calls, facing threats on social media, and fearing your own legal exposure. For many at GVE, the scandal didn't just destroy jobs, it shattered trust, ambitions, and sometimes even friendships. So, before we talk about the big players, the eye-watering numbers, and the boardroom drama, let's start where few ever do, with the human fallout. This is the side of the GVE story the headlines never showed.
Beneath the glossy showroom lights and social media bravado, GVE London was a workplace bustling with ambition and anxiety. The story of its implosion is not merely about business failure or mismanagement. It's about real people suddenly thrown into chaos, their livelihoods and futures turned upside down. Take the sales staff, for instance. Many had spent years cultivating client lists, learning the language of high finance, and navigating the expectations of a demanding clientele. Some had made personal sacrifices to join GVE, lured by the prestige of selling supercars and the promise of high commissions. Overnight, their professional identity vanished. One former employee, who spoke out anonymously on a private forum, described the moment it all sunk in. "We were told to keep reassuring customers, even when we knew payouts were late. If you questioned anything, you were sidelined, or worse, blamed." Then there were the brokers and intermediaries, many of whom operated independently but were drawn into GVE's orbit by its market dominance. These brokers often served as the bridge between wealthy clients and the dealership, earning significant fees when deals closed smoothly. Suddenly, they found themselves being hounded for answers they didn't have, left with unpaid commissions, and sometimes even threats of legal action from furious customers. Some, out of a sense of responsibility, dipped into their own savings to make clients whole, suffering personal losses despite having no role in the crisis. Even more troubling were the stories of junior staff, apprentices, administrative assistants and digital marketers whose only mistake was believing in the dream. Several lost months of pay with little hope of recovering it. A few, devastated by the fallout, have since left the motor trade altogether. All of this unfolded in an atmosphere of rumour, paranoia and silence. Some employees tried to raise the alarm but found themselves locked out of meetings, their contracts quietly terminated. Others stayed, torn between loyalty, denial and fear for their own futures. The collapse of GVE London didn't just erase a business, it upended the lives of dozens of honest people who never expected to become collateral damage. As the dust settled on GVE London's collapse, many were left wondering, how could such a spectacular failure have happened in a supposedly well-regulated industry? Weren't there safeguards to protect clients, consignors, and even employees from disaster? The answers from legal experts and regulatory insiders are as troubling as they are enlightening. According to a prominent solicitor specializing in automotive disputes, the law in the UK provides far less security than most people assume. While organizations like the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, and various motor industry bodies set standards, their powers are often limited, especially when it comes to sale or return agreements and complex consignment arrangements. A slick Instagram profile and a string of celebrity clients are no substitute for transparency, one lawyer notes, but there's no legal requirement for dealers to ring-fence client money, and most customers don't realize this until it's too late. One of the most glaring systemic weaknesses lay in the area of financial disclosure. GVE repeatedly filed its accounts late, but Companies House, charged with overseeing corporate filings, rarely intervenes quickly unless clear evidence of fraud or insolvency emerges. Meanwhile, the FCA only has direct oversight of firms providing regulated financial services, not standard dealerships. This left a regulatory blind spot that unscrupulous operators could exploit. Experts also point to a culture of complacency and misplaced trust. Many victims never asked to see contracts or proof that their funds were held in secure accounts. Even those who sensed something was amiss often hesitated to speak out, fearing they would lose access to future business or be ostracized from the tightly knit supercar community. Now, with lawsuits mounting and administrators poring over GVE's tangled accounts, there are growing calls for change. Proposals include mandatory escrow accounts for all consignment sales, stricter reporting requirements, and routine independent audits for dealers handling high-value assets. Yet, as one industry consultant notes, every time a scandal like this erupts, we talk about reform, but meaningful action rarely follows until the next disaster.
If there's one uncomfortable truth to emerge from the GVE London saga, it's how easily even the most experienced buyers, sellers, and investors can be swept up by herd mentality and the seductive pull of FOMO, the fear of missing out. The world of supercars is a heady mix of glamour, exclusivity, and high-stakes ambition. For many, proximity to luxury and influence can blur the lines between rational caution and reckless trust. At GVE, the showroom was just the beginning. Their slick social media presence, videos of million-pound cars, candid behind-the-scenes tours, celebrity guest appearances generated millions of views each week. The dealership became more than a business. It was a brand, a lifestyle, and for some, almost a movement. When you see others, peers, influencers, even friends, consigning their cars or buying from GVE without hesitation, it creates a powerful sense of collective security. Surely, if so many are on board, it must be safe, reasoned more than a few. Psychologists call this social proof. In the high-octane world of supercars, it's easy to mistake visibility for credibility. The more GVE's name trended on Instagram and TikTok, the less likely anyone was to dig deeper or question the fundamentals. This is how red flags were ignored and doubts smothered by the noise of success stories and viral testimonials. Some individuals, in hindsight, admit they saw warning signs: delayed payments, shifting stories, reluctance to provide clear contracts, but chose not to speak out. The crowd's momentum, fueled by FOMO, was simply too strong. Others placed their trust in the dealership's charismatic public faces, believing that likability and confidence equated to reliability. It's a sobering lesson. Popularity is not proof of integrity, and herd behavior is no substitute for due diligence. In the end, the same forces that made GVE London a phenomenon also blinded so many to the risks lurking just beneath the surface.
The collapse of GVA London wasn't just a blow to one dealership, it was a seismic event that rippled through the entire luxury car ecosystem. The damage was not limited to balance sheets and lost vehicles. It cut deeply into reputations, relationships, and even the fabric of trust that holds the industry together. For the employees and brokers, the consequences were swift and often devastating. Some lost months' worth of pay, with redundancy offers falling far short of what was owed. A number of junior staff, disillusioned by the chaos, walked away from the motor trade for good. Brokers, whose entire livelihood depended on the credibility of the dealership, saw years of carefully cultivated client relationships evaporate almost overnight. A handful were left dealing with threats and legal demands from clients who, quite understandably, wanted someone, anyone, to take responsibility. But the suffering didn't end there. Rival dealerships, once competing for the same ultra-wealthy clients, found themselves under new scrutiny. Customers began demanding proof of escrow accounts, detailed contracts, and regular financial updates. The industry's old boys club atmosphere, where handshake deals and verbal agreements were standard, suddenly felt antiquated and dangerous. The regulatory bodies also came under fire. Industry watchdogs and consumer advocates pointed out that for all the glossy PR and membership badges, meaningful oversight had been sorely lacking. The public demanded tougher regulations and, crucially, enforcement that would make it much harder for another GVE-style disaster to occur. In the wake of the scandal, hard lessons began to take root. Employees, brokers, and customers alike learned to be skeptical of hype, wary of charisma, and insistent on clear, written protections. The idea that it could never happen to me was finally put to rest. Ultimately, the GVE debacle served as a reminder that in a world fueled by ambition and appearances, it's vigilance, not bravado, that safeguards livelihoods and legacies.
The downfall of GVE London is more than a cautionary tale. It's a turning point that demands the attention of everyone involved in the luxury automotive world. The headlines may fade, but the scars, financial, emotional, and reputational, will linger for years. The question that remains is not just how this happened, but whether the industry is truly ready to change. For many, GVE's collapse has shattered the illusion that glamour and big numbers guarantee stability. Ambition, spectacle, and influencer-driven marketing may build brands at breakneck speed, but they are no substitute for solid governance and ethical practice. The lessons here extend far beyond one company. Dealers, brokers, and even customers are now re-evaluating what trust really means and what steps they must take to protect themselves. Industry observers predict that regulatory reform is inevitable. Proposals for mandatory escrow accounts, independent audits, and stricter licensing are already being discussed. There's a renewed appetite for transparency, both from those handling consignments and those putting their hard-earned money and prized vehicles on the line. But history shows that meaningful change requires more than talk. It demands vigilance, accountability, and a willingness to learn from the pain of past mistakes. For the individuals caught in the GVE maelstrom, the road to recovery will be long. Some may never fully recoup their losses or restore their reputations. Yet there is hope. By sharing their stories, demanding answers, and supporting calls for reform, they may help ensure that the next would-be victim recognizes the warning signs before it's too late. As for the wider industry, this is a rare chance to reset. The future will belong to those who blend passion with prudence, who understand that real prestige comes not from appearances, but from integrity. The next chapter of the supercar world is yet to be written. Let's hope it's built on lessons learned, not illusions sold.